Well, the world is a dumpster fire, and nothing here makes sense. And you vacillate between crippling fear and constant self-defense. And nothing's right and nothing's good, and you're paralyzed with grief. Don't kill yourself, just have a cup of coffee.
Welcome to Coffee Over Suicide, the dramedy podcast about choosing life over death, one cup of coffee at a time. My name is Chris Parker Howard, and last week got a little dark. It's just part of the process, I guess. I was a little nervous about putting it out there, but the feedback that I've gotten from everybody has let me know that that's exactly why I'm doing this. To show that sometimes things go sideways on us in ways that we can't really predict. And then, what are you going to do? You have to show up and do something, right? So I mentioned that you should check in with people and talk to other human beings when you're having this level of anxiety and depression. And boy, did I talk to people. A little too much, quite frankly. And so I had a lot of other people rattling around inside me for a while. And it kind of reminded me of that feeling that you get when you're in high school and you fall in love with somebody so easy at the drop of a hat. And then they leave and they're just rattling around inside you. And you make yourself sick. That's where lovesick comes from. And if you start thinking those thoughts through all the way to their logical conclusion, you can pretty much calm them down right away. But the point is, when you're doing something like this, you really have to start thinking about how you're going to manage your own nonsense when it starts to go off. Because having other people's things rattling around inside you, even if you solve some problems, it's great, but you're still carrying around a bunch of other energy. And then what are you going to do then? You got to find boxes to put this stuff in, or it's going to eat you alive. And so I did. I talked to some people and really set some things straight, talked to some friends. And it's been overwhelmingly positive. I want to thank everybody for the feedback that I'm getting. You can always send me stuff through the Facebook page or randomvideos@gmail.com. That's RANDUMB videos@gmail.com. It's like randomify. Randomify, that's the thing. Did I not tell you what this is? It doesn't matter. Now, what does matter is that I tell you right off the bat that I'm not any kind of licensed therapist. So this is not a replacement for therapy if you need it. Think about it more like asking a friend to take a look at a mole. I mean, yeah, I'll take a look at it. You should probably get it checked out, though. I mean, it looks fine to me. But what's that? I mean, I don't know what that is. Do I have one of those? Now, today on the show, I have a broadcasting icon from the Denver music scene. You might know him from the Locals Only show or the All Request Retro show, Sundays at 8 to midnight on 93.3 KTCL Denver. You might know him as a giant gorilla from There's an Ape for That, or simply as DJ Alf. I've got Alf Kremer on the show today. And Alf is a guy that I did not know very well at all when we had this conversation, and that is evidenced quite plainly in the fact that I had a split second of panic at the beginning of our conversation, which, quite frankly, it led to an awkward exchange at the beginning. But as the rest of the conversation turned out so well, I kind of thought it might be fun to leave that awkwardness in there. So you're going to hear it, and you're going to hear us kind of start to, be able to navigate around each other. And you're also going to hear a man who definitely knows what he's doing versus one who is just starting to figure it out. And this was actually the second conversation I had had for this podcast, and so he was very generous to jump in and really donate his time and wisdom to me. So as the conversation today is the longest one I've had so far, and it is fantastic. You're going to want to listen to the whole thing. You absolutely will. I didn't cut it down. I thought about putting it up in 2 pieces, but I mean, this isn't a story. It's a conversation. And you wouldn't break a conversation into parts. Now, you can pause it and come back to it, however you see fit. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I'm not your mom. But I highly recommend listening to the whole thing here. So I'm going to keep the intro on this really, really short. We're just going to get into it. But I would be remiss if I did not mention the fact that today, the day this comes out, you can actually go see Alf performing as There's an Ape for That at the Denver Distillery at 10 p.m. as part of the Underground Music Showcase right here in Denver. It is highly worth your time. He's an entertaining guy. He's a sweet guy. He's full of wisdom, full of information, and I didn't know him very well before we had this conversation, but I love him to death now. So let's talk to Alf Kremer. Well, Alf Kremer.
Yes.
How you doing?
I'm
man?
okay. I'm okay. This will be an interesting podcast. I've done 3.
Yeah.
So and the other 2, not surprisingly, were music related. So this will be a different one for me, but that'll be good for the soul.
Well, and you're at the college radio.
No, not college.
Not college.
Yeah, it's commercial. It's channel 93.3.
Oh, that's right.
That's okay. No, that's all right. That's all right. I don't know what you do either. That's, but yeah,
something other than this. I'll tell you that.
Apparently,
Yeah,
one would hope.
Yeah, a lot of research goes into this. Apparently,
it's like otherwise would be under an overpass. I think if this was your only job. I've been there just over 20 years. 21 or 22 coming up anniversary. So I've been there some time. I only on Sunday nights. I do the new music show, the local music show, and the retro music show.
Right.
So,
well, that's cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of variety for such a short time being on the air. So,
plus, it's good to be exposed to new stuff. I find the thing that, especially for me, like when I started getting older, it became harder and harder to make myself.
Yeah,
stay exposed to new music.
Precisely. It kind of forces me to do so, which is nice, and it can occasionally it becomes work, but that's fine.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you kind of have to do this. It's kind of your job, and so I don't want to.
Well, but at least you're not dealing with the strict. Hand down of the edict from the people up at the top, or saying,
there's none of that, but just basically, either, for many years it was literally opening envelopes, pulling out CDs and playing them. Now it's a lot more of it's metaphorical. You open the zip file on your laptop and you pull it open and you listen that way. But which is good because I'm older and lazier, and that's less work for me. So, it's just click, 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 and then figure out the songs that way.
So where did you grow up? Are you from Denver?
It depends on who you ask. I moved here when I was 11, so it'll be up to you whether or not to decide whether I am. There's some who would still call me a transplant. There were others who would say, no, that's plenty long enough. That's all right.
That's the dog.
That's okay. It's my spirit animal here, giving me strength.
She's a Colorado native, and she was giving you a hard time.
Oh, I see. That's what that's all about. No, I moved here when I was 11. I grew up in San Francisco before that, which was a change. There's cities have their own vibe, and San Francisco definitely had a different vibe than Denver kind of ever did. So
well, the thing that I like about San Francisco is that it's usually a lot colder than people think it's going to be. Like it's warm during the day, but then you get that evening rolling.
That fog
in,
comes
like off
in,
of the
and
bay.
oh Lord, yeah, it's I mean, but it's kind of reliably cold. It's what the high temperature is every day. You know what the low temperature is every day. That's not going to be a surprise to anybody.
But it is fun to watch tourists.
Oh, yeah.
But this is California.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when I moved here, everyone was like, "So you go surfing all the time?" No, are you insane? We stayed as far away from the ocean as we possibly could because that's where it got really cold. So.
But that would have been San Francisco of a different time too, because the Silicon Valley's taken over. It's really gentrified a lot of it.
Yeah, my parents sold their house in '81 for $190,000. I did look it up on Zazzle or whatever that website is. I think it just sold for $3.2 million.
Yeah.
So,
of course.
And apparently that's like the crack district. I'm like a $3.2 million house in the crack district. I'm like, okay.
Right.
That's a thing, apparently.
It's like a den of programmers living
there.
Yeah,
exactly. It's like, they're Linux, stay away.
Well, that's awesome. So you've been here a long time then. Much your whole life.
Yeah. I went to college out in the LA area, and my first radio job for about a year and a half was in New Mexico, like northern New Mexico. But other than that, I've been here. So,
nice. Well, there are some similarities between here, New Mexico, and San Francisco. I mean, there's a lot of nature emphasized in those places. Like in San Francisco, you can actually see. It's not quite like the mountains, but I mean, there's a lot of rolling hills.
There's rolling hills, and there's the boy, I'm blanking on the name of the place, but there was like this preserve just right down the way from where we were growing up.
Yeah,
you go there, and there's these huge trees, and it's like you're in the African jungle, and you're literally like a block away from a post office.
Yeah,
and which was awesome. Like you could switch from one to the other. New Mexico was really kind of, you have to really kind of like that sort of, desolate sort of, even, in the more populated areas. I was in Farmington, which was all of, 50,000 people, which meant, 2 Sonic drive-ins, instead of 1. And my big
the one with the dogs, and we don't go to that one.
Right. We had one. My big thing when I first moved there was I was out front as they opened the new Target store. That was the big yes, we're here live at the Target opening. So, but that so it was about that size. Not a lot to do there.
There's still a lot of empty places in New Mexico. I was just there like a year ago, and to see how much of it is still just wide open. Like I went camping, and it was dirt roads, no cell phone reception. In fact, none of the people at the campground even had cell phones because they just didn't work.
Right.
And you had to follow these instructions that you had to write down because you couldn't map quest the place.
Right.
You couldn't do anything. So, I mean, it was like he says to turn at the big broken tree. You'll know which one. And I'll be goddamned if we didn't know which one when we finally hit it. And it was insane. Like this big, it was like an optical illusion. There was a whole lot of nothing.
Right.
And then there was this basin that was just amazingly gorgeous. And full of more insects than I've seen my whole life.
See, that's the opposite of when I first moved to New Mexico, because they set me out on a thing to do. It wasn't the Target thing, it was something else. And one of the directions they gave me, swear to God, was turn right where the train used to be. And I'm like, is there like a train-shaped depression there? Because otherwise I'm not going to know, man,
Send the kid. I'm 35.
Exactly. It's that kind of town, not a lot of transient people. Either you've lived there all your life, or you're on your way through and you will not be there next week, I guess.
Yeah. I got a friend who's based out of New Mexico, and she's a cartoonist, and well, I shouldn't say she's a cartoonist. She does a web comic. She's a writer.
Okay. All right.
But she's done all kinds of comics and things her whole life, and she bases out of New Mexico, and there's just something about it. She just loves it there.
It takes a certain person, I think. It was not for me. I mean, I would not, put it down in any way.
Yeah.
It just, that kind of it was not good for the depression. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, I was very happy to come back to Denver, just on that front, But yeah, I mean, I can see other people really enjoying it.
Yeah,
I don't mind going back to visit, but and I don't think it'd be good for me to live there. So
yeah, there's a lot of places like that. I have kind of the same situation. I came here from Michigan, and so there's a lot of things that really should be kindred to here. What with the nature and
right.
the trees and things like that. But there is, for me at least, almost sort of an association that I take with me whenever I think about going back there, or the person I was at that time in my life, or any of that. There's a connotation that comes with it. And,
right.
So when did it first become a thing that you noticed in yourself? You mentioned not good for the depression. Like when did you first notice that you had depression?
Well, I'm gonna kind of go way back.
Because,
the dog very excited about that. Just because I think it kind of clarifies a couple things. Way back when I was like 10, my parents took me in for some testing because I have what are now called spatial relationship issues, but back then I was just a big old klutz. And so I went through all this testing, and then we went back. And their analysis was, Alf does have some pretty moderate spatial relations issues. Mm-hmm. However, over the course of the last however many years, mm-hmm. he has come up with ways to compensate for having them.
Okay.
And because of that, we think it would be more harm to undo all of that and start from scratch and fix his issues than it would be to just let him continue compensating for what he has. And my parents decided that was probably a good idea. And because of that, I am still very klutzy, but have developed ways to deal with being a klutz.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, this has kind of come to sort of be how I've dealt with my mental and emotional issues as well, is a lot of the time I just realized that this is kind of the way things are for me. And especially if it's a small or not that big of a deal sort of a thing, I just find ways to deal with it. I find ways to compensate. Depression was sort of a thing where it snuck up on me, because there was you can't really go, well, this is the day that, it started. It was just suddenly you realize, well, I've been having bad day after bad day, and now I'm and every one of the bad days seems slightly worse than the one that came before.
Right.
And I remember the first kind of specific thing was, it was before my first radio job. I was living with my parents trying to get a radio job after college. Right. And I decided, well, Halloween's coming up. Just for fun, I'm going to buy a pumpkin and carve it, and for Halloween. And before I knew it, it was November 10th, and I still hadn't gotten around to doing that. And it's not like I had anything else going on. I was working a bookkeeping job. I was coming home and, listening to music or reading or maybe watching TV. I maybe had one friend that I could go hang out with occasionally, but that was it, And all I wanted to do was this, I'll do this. And I just did not get around to it. And I realized it's like I can't even get to that, Mm-hmm. My mind is now on that level. And that's where I was like, well, something's wrong. I don't know what was wrong, but something was wrong.
Yeah.
And I decided I had to do something. This was, going back to what I said earlier, it was like I decided I don't think I can compensate for this anymore.
Yeah.
Whatever the issue is, it is beyond my means to easily deal with. I like to look at my mental health the way I look at my physical health, and I'm like, I'll I'll cut my finger open, I'll get a cold, I can deal with that stuff. You know?
Yeah.
If I break my leg, I can't deal with that. You know, I need to find somebody to help, get me to a better place,
right,
as it were. You know, and I don't think people look down on those who go get their foot put into a cast when they break them. You know,
sure.
It's, and that's how I kind of deal with that. That's how I feel about my mental health as well. Is like at some point, up to this point, I was dealing with it fine. I've now reached a point where I can't. So I had to go do something. Right.
But you didn't start there, right? I mean, obviously you're not going to start from a place of self-awareness.
See,
even if you know something is off about yourself, it seems like there would be some level of almost some level of denial in there being a problem by the very existence of your reality being that way all the time.
What I would say to that is, what I'm putting into words right now, I think I kind of was doing already. I just would not have used those words. I'm not so sure. I think at that point, I already was like, something's majorly wrong. You know, I got to fucking go talk to somebody or go fucking do something.
Right.
I wouldn't have said, well, my mental health is, I wouldn't have said that.
Sure.
But
you had the self-awareness that something was not, like, you weren't experiencing the world the same way as the people around you.
Precisely. And I, in a way, I kind of knew that from way back when, that I process information differently, I take in information differently, and I deal with it differently than most people. And you learn how to adapt to, it's like, I'm supposed to look at somebody when they're talking to me.
Yeah.
I fucking hate doing that.
Yeah.
It's like, that's why radio is the perfect job for me. I go to an empty room and talk to people. It's like, what amazing job for me.
That's
perfect.
Why I went into tech support.
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
the same thing.
I don't have to deal with people. This is perfect.
I don't want to deal with people, so I'm going to go into customer service.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
But I can shut them up by pushing this button. Perfect. But yeah, there was, I think even then I already had, I'm sure I tried things. I was like, well, I'll listen to happy music, whatever it was. I honestly can't remember. It was many, many years ago, over 20 now. So, but I fairly quickly came to the realization that something was different. I mean, it certainly felt different. My depression actually has a few, what you might call physical symptoms.
Sure.
I get like extremely cold, and like I feel cold like almost from the inside out. Mm-hmm. And it was, and when that happened, it's like, well, Jesus, something's wrong. That's not supposed to happen.
Right.
That's never happened before.
Were your parents pretty sympathetic about that? When you would mention these things? Yeah.
I mean, it's not something you bring up constantly now because I'm ashamed of it or anything, but you deal with crap all the time in your head, and you're like, I'll do this, I'll try that, when you cut your finger open, you don't show everybody your finger, it's just like, if somebody asks, you'll tell them, but it just never came up. But then it was like, I was having this issue, and I think I did tell my parents first, I guess, it would stand to reason. And I said, well, I'm not sure what to do next.
Yeah.
And I wasn't against any, as far as I was concerned, every option was on the table. I just didn't even know where to start.
Right.
And so I did start by getting a doctor's appointment. And I said, well, let's just try the basic stuff, get the blood work done, see if there's some really obvious physical issue that I'm dealing with.
Sure.
And, if there is, great, we'll deal with that. If not, on to the next step, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So I did, and I was really lucky because back then, not surprisingly, I did not have any medical insurance, and I found a doctor who was willing to do blood work and everything for like a really not much money.
Yeah.
And he ran all the tests and basically said, I'm not finding anything. There's really nothing off about you. You're overweight, but you knew that. And that's not, that doesn't account for what you're dealing with. So he says, if you'd like, I could refer you to a psychiatrist. And I was like, well, we may as well try that next.
Sure. So you were pretty open to it from the very beginning.
Yeah, I didn't
Like,
mention...
let's fix this fucking thing before it goes sideways.
Well, I'll say this in addition. Way back when I was 9 or 10, I saw a psychiatrist or a mental health expert for a few months on something more specific. And it didn't... I don't know if that actually helped necessarily, but it did remove the stigma of going to see somebody.
Okay, so
there was
you had already primed that pump, just kind of.
Yeah,
like,
it never struck me as,
your family didn't
untoward.
make you feel weird about it.
Oh, no,
or
not at
anything.
all. I mean, it was just, it's just what you would do if you had a problem.
Sure.
I mean, and the funny thing is, like, as much as people talk about there being a stigma, and I'm not going to argue that there isn't necessarily, but if I look back on, like, the TV shows and movies I saw, a lot of people were going to see psychiatrists, and it was played for laughs, but everything was played for laughs,
right? Of course.
But you see, Tony Soprano goes to see a psychiatrist, and like there's all this other stuff, and it's like, well, sure, it's just something you do, if you need to. So it didn't seem. I didn't feel like I was admitting weakness. I didn't feel like I was, saying, "Oh my God, I'm totally broken." It's just, to me, it's like, shit's broken. Let's go see what we can do about making it better.
Yeah, I think for me the thing that I had about it before seeing a psychiatrist was I had this idea that being off was my fault somehow. Like that's where I came from with it. So when I saw people, like you, who were able to just say, something's not right here, I'm gonna take care of it. Like I just couldn't wrap my head around how somebody could come to that. Like,
well, I guess in a sense I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time I was not. Like I said, everything was on the table. I was not against anyone saying it is your fault.
You close with your family? Like, did you?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I'm deciding not so much how much to say necessarily, not because I want to keep secrets, but it's just like, well, I could talk about this for 45 minutes if you really want me to, but I'm trying to find a quick overview sort of thing, which is, we are fairly close. There was a slight sense of what I call formality with my parents, but it's always been very loving. It's always been very supportive.
Okay.
They've always, they let me go into radio, for God's sake.
Yeah.
They said, "Oh my God, you found the one career that pays less than teaching, which is what you were going to do before." It's like, how did you do that? But they were very
magic.
Yes. No, teacher makes way too much money. I know. We'll go into radio, a dying medium. Perfect. No, and they were very supportive. They were like, this. They might have said, "That sounds insane, but if that's really what you want to do, go for it."
Yeah.
So they were very supportive about me going to see somebody. There certainly wasn't any suggestion that I shouldn't.
And how old were you when you decided to go see somebody?
It was 94, so I was 24.
Okay.
So yeah,
So you had already gone through, your formative childhood, and I mean, so you move here when you're 11, and then so between there and when you first decide I got to do something about this, were there ever any manifestations that, like, did anybody, like, certainly somewhere in your group of friends, something must have, I say must have, but I mean it seems that there may have been some kind of manifestation that they'd go, geez, he's taking this hard, or something strange, or were they just like, Alf is Alf?
Kind of Alf is Alf. I was kind of in with the misfits.
Yeah.
I mean, in high school, not necessarily the other. My joke is my group was the almost group. We had the guy who was almost good enough to be a jock, the kid who was almost smart enough to be a geek. It was like
the island of misfit toys.
Yeah, well, we're only complete misfits. It was just like, well, we weren't quite good enough to make any of the other cliques,
right?
So we'll kind of form our own clique.
Nice.
Yeah, and people found, I mean, I kind of had my typical teenage angst. I remember doing the nobody understands me routine, which I think every kid goes through at that certain age. But, it didn't seem necessarily any stranger.
It didn't seem any different. Okay.
Yeah. And, I learned how to deal with stuff. I never really had a problem being by myself. I quickly learned it's like, oh, I can, books are cool. Mm-hmm. So I've got a shitload of books. Music's awesome. So I got all these records and I listen to the radio a lot and watch MTV. And you find what works for you.
Yeah,
basically, that's kind of how I dealt with anything that didn't any hole in my life. Basically, it's like, well, what do I like? Well, I like this stuff. Okay, I'll go do that stuff.
Nice.
All things considered, I had a pretty stable childhood, teenagedom. I went to college, and I really sort of fell in with a group that I think really moved me from what I was before to Alf.
Yeah.
What I am now. I think pretty much anybody who saw me come into college and leave college said, yeah, that college, it wasn't the college, it was really more the students, but I think the college helped too. But,
so what was it about the people that you had met in that experience that really opened you up?
I think I found a lot of kindred spirits. I ended up in the same dorm freshman year with a lot of people who were similar to me in that respect, in finding what works for you and just doing it. I mean, I'm trying to remember the group of people we had on our floor, and we were kind of mocked, almost good-naturedly.
Yeah,
we were called the buffer zone. The reason was we were all guys. It was the only all-male section of any dorm on campus, and the idea was that we would keep all the would-be murderers / rapists from getting to the women upstairs. And if you saw who they picked to be in this group, you're like, oh, you've got to be kidding. There's like one quote unquote jock in the entire group, and he got kicked off the football team because he wasn't good enough,
Right.
And I'm like, really? We're gonna be waving them upstairs, really. It's like if you need help carrying anything downstairs, let us know.
Yeah.
But so there was me, there was that jock who actually was my roommate at the time. There was the kind of prototypical college radio guy.
Yeah.
Was there. There was the guy who listened to nothing but movie soundtracks like 24/7. Was there the guy who was obsessed with like Blade Runner and wanted to be a journalist more than anything in the world?
Of course he did.
There was a guy who could play 28 musical instruments already, and you knew he was going to get into music. So it was like that group. It was like we didn't necessarily have things in common, but like the mindset was there.
Yeah,
it was like we've already started finding our way through the morass of who am I and what do I like and what am I going to do.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think we all had kind of differing outlooks on life, and just we all kind of dealt with life that same way, kind of with a bemused, sardonic look at the world at large,
like observers. Like,
well, we were taking part as well, but
well, of course. I mean, you
yeah.
can't help but be involved in the world. But at the same time, there is almost this sense of there's the masses, and then there's pockets.
Yeah, we were kind of looking at the masses, and it's not like we felt we were above them even, we just kind of felt
but just other than. Yeah, because you don't necessarily have to be, thinking that you're above somebody to find some humor in the differences.
Oh no, not at all. And just to kind of show you what happened, the guy who wanted to be a journalist is now a senior editor at Wired.
Nice.
And the guy who's going to write music, does music for TV and movies, and owns his own studio and the whole deal. And, so like we all did kind of find our own path. And for a lot of us, that path was, if not financially rewarding,
right.
It was, mentally and emotionally rewarding. It was, we found out, I don't think any of us were destined to be middle management in that group. It was just that. So I think we all kind of helped each other blossom into the freaky, but hopefully awesome to know people that we are today.
Yeah. I the thing that I always find so great about the people who decide, that's it, I'm doing it, is that there is they don't give themselves another option. Like they just don't. They don't even have a plan B.
It's funny you say that. The college I went to was Pomona College in Claremont, California, and it was the only college I applied to. I had no backup. My first radio job offer, the one in Farmington, New Mexico, said we will give you the overnight shift for $600 a month.
Yeah, and you were like, I did it.
Yes, I didn't have a car. I didn't have like on the way. You know?
Yeah,
I'm like, how am I going to survive on $600 a month? You know, dear Lord. You know,
well, a lot of ramen, a bicycle.
Oh, Lord. Actually, my diet for the first couple months was nothing for breakfast, 2 Big Macs for $2 for lunch, and crackers or popcorn for dinner. That was my diet.
Yeah, you can't
then.
mess with that. I mean,
Yeah.
you find out what works.
Yeah.
I remember there was a period of time where I was living in Michigan, and I had this job, and it wasn't paying a lot, and I got a couple of kids, and they're coming to spend time with Dad. Every other weekend. I was that divorced dad.
Oh no,
with no
okay.
money,
Uh-huh.
and and there I was. I didn't have a car, so I'm walking 4 miles to work, and I would have after all my expenses, I would have like $30 to get groceries for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, I got to feed the kids this weekend, so $10 is going to pizza. So there we go. Now we just got to figure out how to survive the rest of the time.
Yeah. Which crackers are on sale this week?
Which crackers are on sale this week? Save-A-Lot was my savior.
Yes.
And you can do it. You
can.
absolutely can do it. I ate a lot of rice cake and a lot of tuna.
Right.
Straight out of the can.
Yeah.
And you didn't want to get the stuff with the water because that was for suckers. Because if you get it with the oil,
there's calories in
yeah,
that.
exactly. That'll sustain you. You can eat a can of tuna and be good for most of the day.
When I first started my job in New Mexico, and I was talking about how my finances were, my morning guy said, "You will be tempted to have hamburger helper without the hamburger. Let me tell you right now, you do not want to do that." And he was right. I almost did that once. And he's like,
"Oh yeah,
you're not going to want to do that." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll come up with something else."
Yeah, there's nothing sad. You want to talk about something to really make your depression, make you
Yes.
rethink the decisions you've made in your life up to that moment. Look at yourself sitting at a table by yourself with helper.
Yes, not even hamburger, just helper.
Just helper.
I remember
Happy birthday
to me. I was looking for a second job because I had this overnight job.
Yeah.
And so I was at the mall because there's only one down there, and I was trying out all the stores, and I spent roughly an hour while doing that debating if I had enough money for an Orange Julius. And I decided that's when I knew I had made it, when I could just say, fuck it, I'm buying an Orange Julius, and I didn't have to think about it.
Yeah.
And because of that, I've never felt like I'm stuck anywhere. It's like, you know what, right now I can go fucking buy an Orange Julius any goddamn time I want to.
I remember that moment, too. The very first time that I looked at a candy bar in a vending machine and said, fuck it. I'm getting the candy bar.
Isn't that just like,
and everyone is going to have to just deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, rent's going to be at least a day late.
Exactly.
Because I got that goddamn Snickers.
So how did you get sleep? Did you get sleep? Did you make? Because it seems like that would be a thing where you'd have to make friends with strange hours. And
you're talking about the overnight gig or the depression?
Well, because those two things were. It seems like they would go hand in hand. It's like on the one hand, you've got your job. You're working in radio, you're doing it, but at the same time, working strange hours like that can wreak havoc on your chemistry.
I'll say that the depression started to recede when I moved to New Mexico. It didn't immediately go away, and I still had residual parts of it like 3 months in. But I'd say within a month or two, you'd say remission. I don't know what the right term is, but that's
geographical cure.
It wasn't so much geographical as it was my brain now had a lot more things to deal with,
You just didn't have time for it.
Well, kind of, yeah. Well, not just that, not just the time thing, but it's like I had all this other stuff to process,
Yeah.
one of the cool things about getting a radio job in the middle of nowhere is that there's nothing else to do between that and not having any money. So even if I wanted to, I couldn't go out and do anything. So I was at the station just learning crap constantly. You know, they were like, oh, you can, you know, we need people to record public service announcements and commercials and top of the hour IDs. And here's how we do that. And here's how you do work this machine. And here's how you fix this machine when it breaks, and and there's all this information that I say, hey, can I sit down on the music meetings, even though that wasn't part of my job. So I said, well, this is how this works. I'm now learning the trade, as it were. And I you learn how to do everything at a station like that because you have to. If the CD player breaks or the cart player back then. The guy who fixes it actually lived in Denver. And so we'd have to put a call into him, and he'd try to work his way down here at some point in the next 2 weeks. And no, you figure out how to fix that because we don't have 2 weeks. We're not going to stay off the air for 2 weeks while you...
Is that something you were good with? Like when, a pressured situation would come up, you'd have to handle it?
You don't have a choice, really. After a while, you just
of course you have a choice. You can melt down. You can tell them to go fuck themselves.
Well, that's just it. Is you melt down, you go fuck yourself, and you're still on the air. And you still have a broken machine. So it's like you literally don't have a choice. It's like, I'd kick the wall and I'd, scream at whoever owned the station for not buying better equipment.
Right. Anybody would, but but you found a way to handle it.
Yeah, my nightmare scenario always was being live on air and having 2 CD players and having them both break. And like 3 or 4 years ago, that finally happened. So like it's like you can't play any music. Go. Like now I'm a talk radio show or something.
Exactly.
And I learned that I could basically bullshit for 2 or 3 minutes while I pulled out a screwdriver and opened up both the CD players and tried to fix them while I was talking.
Yeah.
And finally got one of them to work, and suddenly I can at least play a song. And while that one's playing, I'm working on the other one. And, so, yeah, and the funny thing is, that's kind of a generic nightmare. Like when you're in radio, is like my thing was, like I'd play a song and turn around and there's literally no music there. Like a big empty bookcase. It's like, well, what am I supposed to do?
Where did it go?
But then I had that actually happen, and then the dreams never come back because your brain goes, well, you can handle that. You now know you can handle that, and so it's in a way it was kind of, I don't want it to happen again, but
of course.
But in a sense, I'm kind of happy it did because you remove that stress. You don't have to deal with that anymore.
You're a pretty laid back guy by nature, anyway.
Yeah,
and so it doesn't strike me that you would have a lot of flare-ups of insane anger because you lost control of a situation.
I will say that what tends to happen is it'll build up, and a lot of times I don't even realize it is. It's just one of those things where it's the proverbial straw more than the CD players stop working.
So it's a series of things that'll.
Yes, a CD skips once, and suddenly I'm kicking over. Tables and stuff. It's but that doesn't happen very often. I usually have enough stress relief that I don't get to that point. You know? It has happened. I won't say I'm proud of it, but I won't say I'm ashamed of it either. It's like, sometimes I just had enough shit, and someone actually came into work once, and like I had that thing where like I was trying to do too much, and like the desk got too full. Mm-hmm. And then finally, like I reached for something and I knocked something over, and I said, "Well, fuck it!" And I like literally threw everything I owned onto the floor.
Right.
And someone comes in while you're doing that, and they're just giving you that look, and it's like you're gonna not want to be here right now. Anywhere else you want to be, not here.
You're like your own personal riot.
Yes.
It's a lot. It feels so good in that moment,
right?
But then when you're picking the stuff up and you're looking at your broken things, you feel so small.
Well, at the same time, it's like, well, now it's cleaner, right? It's like it needed to be cleaned. It's just a weird ass way to do it. But
that is maybe the most twisted optimism I have ever seen.
You know,
anyone
it's
put on.
you dig through the horse manure thinking there's got to be a pony in here somewhere. You just got to. It's I accept the fact that shit happens a lot.
Right.
And
so were there times
when
when you didn't accept that so well? I mean,
yeah, I mean,
have
certainly
you had
certainly my teenage years.
Yeah.
But I think that's true of pretty much every teenager, right?
Sure.
As it goes through that.
I mean, teenage
why
years
is
were the
everyone
first years that I realized that we could die.
Yeah.
Those are the
yeah,
first years where
yeah.
I first realized that, because invariably, especially if you're running with that sort of quasi dangerous artsy crowd,
Right.
if you're running with those people, chances are the lottery's going to come up on somebody,
Right.
at some point,
Right.
and you're going to be forced to deal with that.
Yeah.
And then you're going to start having a look at all of your own shit, and and I've seen people go either way. They either start to figure out, well, this is a lesson learned. I mean, I wasn't close to that, or I was close to that, and I'm not going to be now because I don't want to put anybody through this.
Right.
Or they go the other way and they go, yeah, I get it. That's the way, man. And there's always that one. Yeah, there's always that one person that's just like, they got out before fucking algebra, right on. Jesus Christ, Dave.
Yeah, it's like it's some sort of AC/DC song that you missed.
Exactly. Like, oh well. I mean,
he burned
but then
out
again,
rather than faded away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll fade.
Yeah.
I'm good with a fade.
Fades are awesome, man.
Yeah.
I got. I don't know about you, but like I said, books are awesome, man. I'm not going outside.
Yeah.
And so I was always kind of the quiet one anyway.
Yeah.
So I didn't run with the. I hardly had a crowd to begin with,
Sure.
let alone a dangerous one.
Yeah.
Our dangerous thing was like, ooh, we're gonna watch, Night Tracks instead of MTV tonight.
Right.
Look out, everybody.
Yeah, my crowd was just, we're gonna maybe get garlic bread at the Big Boy and smoke at the Denny's. That was.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll let us play Monopoly.
Yeah. Right. So no. I do remember freaking out about mortality in my teen years.
Yeah.
I remember it specifically coming in the guise of, oh my God, we're all going to die in nuclear war, because it was mid-'80s and that's what you did.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That fear was so real.
But and then you realize, well, I've been thinking this for 2 years, and people have been thinking this for many more, and here we still are. And after a while, you're just like, well, what the hell am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
If it's like not like, oh, the nuclear war wouldn't have happened if only Alf had cleaned his room on time. It does not come down to me.
Right.
Things that big. And so after a while, you just deal with that. You learn to accept death. You learn to accept mortality.
Right.
Kind of my way of dealing with it was somebody had to die so I could show up. And then eventually I got to leave so somebody else can come in, and they can have a life too, I know that's not mathematically accurate, but it's like, well, dude, if nobody died, it's gonna be really fucking crowded here really soon.
Yeah, exactly. There's,
I
think that people have a lifespan specifically just because, there's just not enough space.
Well,
it's not a sustainable
and
model.
that it's like, and why the fuck would you do anything if you never died? It's it's like, I had to fight with him, but I can make up with him next century.
Yeah.
It's or oh, well, that's when I'll finally get around to doing something. It's. People procrastinate bad enough as it is. I mean, and I'm as guilty as anybody else at that. But I mean, that's kind of, it's like, we got to get shit done.
Yeah.
And so we may as well go do it now.
Well, it definitely took me a long time to come around to that idea of you can always do something else.
Right.
You can always just take everything that you've done and apologize,
right,
and then move on, and then that idea that the fact that it does end is what makes it special.
Yeah,
in part. I mean, as strange as that sounds, but
no, actually, I usually take that even further, and that's people find that a little weird, and I had to come up with a way of saying this so people didn't freak out about it.
Yeah.
Which is when somebody in my life, or in my life specifically, dies, what I immediately think is how goddamn lucky I was to have that person in my life to have that effect on me. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like my grandmother died. Boy, I'm already losing it. Maybe 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, I still managed to have her, you know, for almost 40 years. You know,
Yeah.
she got to have that kind of influence on me, you know, and that's, you know, I got really fucking lucky
Yeah.
to have that, you know, and I know people sometimes eventually get there.
Mm-hmm.
My brain almost immediately goes there. But so when someone dies, it's like, oh my God, this person died in my life. You know, I had to kind of find a way to, instead of saying, I'm so sorry for your loss, but, you know, but a way to say, I'm really happy they were in your life.
Yeah.
You know, because you don't get torn up about people in your life, you know, who don't make a difference.
Yeah.
You know, you're the guy who lives 3 doors down that you saw twice. You heard he died. It's like, oh, that's a shame. You know.
Yeah, but
Right.
I didn't know that guy.
Yeah, so there's no effect there.
Yeah.
You know, unless it's like, you know, wow, you know, that makes you think, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
If, you know, like you were saying earlier. But other than that, there's no effect there.
Sure.
It's when it's close to you and it affects you. It's like, wow, but you had someone in your life that meant enough to you to affect you that badly. It was at least really cool. It was really awesome that person was in your life, you know. And when I first tried doing that, people were like looking at me like I was insane. I'm like, okay, I got to find another way to say this. You know, and so
Yeah.
like not too long ago, a friend of mine lost.
Like it can almost seem condescending at some point.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
you're
but
coming across as aloof.
Right. Or spouting platitudes or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a friend of mine in California lost a close friend of his who I didn't know. And after finding out about it and him telling me, and he kind of shared a link which showed, you know, all the things that this woman had accomplished. And I was like, wow, she sounds like a really amazing person. You know, and he was like, yeah. And I said, wow, that's really cool that you got to know her and, you know, got to have her for as many years as you did. And apparently that was the right thing to say.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm getting better at this, you know. But that's kind of how I've started dealing with that kind of shit.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you know, as people get older, I think that people do tend to get either more comfortable or less comfortable with the idea of mortality.
Yeah, you know, especially if it becomes less comfortable, especially if you haven't dealt with it or if you haven't really come to grips with it.
Yeah.
My parents are now, they're both in their 80s, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. We are now looking into, you know, quote unquote old folks' homes to move them into.
Sure.
My mother is starting to, you know, her memory's starting to get more and more sketchy, you know. And, you know, so that's just, okay, that's where they are now. You know, it's
Yeah.
not like I didn't know it was going to happen. It's true of everybody. So, okay, that's the level we're at now. You know,
Yeah.
so we're looking at homes and they're, you know, they're not dancing about it.
Yeah.
But they're like, yeah, here we are, you know. And so that's just where we are on that, you know. And I'm not going to pretend I'm happy about it either. But,
Sure.
yeah, here we are. Okay.
Because it sounds like you've got a pretty good relationship with your parents.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they've always been really cool. So,
Yeah. Did you have to come out to your parents? Or was
Yes.
there a thing where they kind of said, oh, buddy. Like,
it was, well, I'll have to go through the whole thing here because it was slow for me. I mean, I didn't figure it out until college, really. There were signs looking back. I'm like,
sure.
but we were talking about one of the things is like I don't take in information the same way as
Yeah.
other people. I'm not very visually attuned.
Right.
And because of that, everyone's like, well, didn't you just know by looking at guys? It's like, well, no. Because
No.
it's like it barely registers. It's almost like you see a book but you don't read it.
Yeah.
Like over here. It's like, well, didn't you see that book was, you know, this? Well, no, I just saw that there was a book there. Big fucking deal, you know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I was looking at people. You know?
Well, I think
So
if
it's
you
just
ask the average teenager and they're honest about it, they'd probably say, you know, I was getting excited about just about everything.
Precisely. I was
So-
turned on by men, women, you know, robots, aliens, vampires, weather vanes, and boxes of vanilla pudding at that
Yeah,
point. I was just
absolutely.
like, I mean, I was sexual, it just wasn't directional. You know, it was just like, I wanted, yeah.
I like that.
I want sperm to come out of my body is basically at the level I was operating at. And so, I didn't have any problem.
So you were a teenager.
Precisely. My fantasies were involved orgasms, basically. So it didn't really matter, who was next to me in them.
Exactly.
I assumed it was a woman, even though, the woman, in retrospect, was ill-formed in my head. I didn't really have a particular one.
Just this nebulous human-shaped, place to put your feelings at that moment.
And sperm.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And because of that, I was just, and this was pre-looking at porn anytime you want to days, obviously.
Oh, yeah,
so,
absolutely.
So it just didn't occur to me. I didn't ogle women, but again, I wasn't visually attuned. I wasn't ogling guys either.
Right.
It wasn't until I was in college, and I remember the day very specifically, I said, well, how come I've gotten this far and I've never dated? I've never, it just never really happened. I just never found somebody I wanted to date, or it's like, yeah, I wanted to bone, but,
yeah,
and again, it's like, but I'm not going to go find some woman to date just for that,
Right.
I'm like, and I, up to that point, I was like, well, I just haven't found anyone. Like, I looked at her and like, oh my God. And when that happens, then I'll know. And so now I'm in college and this still hasn't happened. And I was like, well, what if I'm gay? Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, that's just ridiculous. If I was gay, how would I not know?
Right.
And I said, well, I've never actually thought about it. And I said, well, why don't I do this? I'm going to go outside, because again, it's California, and it's warm outside. I'm just going to sit outside and wait for a guy to go by, and I am going to look at him sexually. I literally had to say that to myself, and I felt just as stupid as it sounded. I'm like,
so it was a science experiment.
Almost. It's like, well, because it's like, well, I just... so we talked about how I just dealt with things differently.
Yeah.
It was like, well, how am I going to deal with this? I'll deal with the fact that I'm clearly a sexual being, like most other people, I should say.
Yeah.
But I haven't found my quote-unquote target yet. So am I gay? Let's find out, So I went out there, and I just sat there and waited, and this guy jogged by, who apparently wasn't a student, a little older than that. And since it was California, and it was the early 90s, he was wearing nothing but sneakers, socks, and a pair of short jogging shorts.
Right.
So I watched him kind of surreptitiously come up, and then he passed me. I'm like, okay, I'm going to stare at his butt now.
Yep.
And I almost ripped my jeans open. I almost yelled to his back, "Holy shit, I'm gay."
Thank you.
Yes. But instead, I went back inside and masturbated furiously. I was like, holy shit, this is awesome.
The truth feels wonderful.
Yes, well, and then it was like, well, is that problem solved? Is that okay? So I'm gay. I'm like, well, let's just run with it for a while. Let's just fantasize about guys from here on out.
Sure.
Because even if I'm attracted to guys, what type of guy? I'm literally at stage 1 that most people, at age 20 that most people are have passed like at stage 10.
Now there's this whole other door.
Right.
Like, it's like that guy jogged, you open the door and you walk in and fuck, now there's all this I have to deal with. I'm in
a fantastic store full of wonderful things, but I don't know where to start,
Right.
So it's like, well, okay, from here on out, I'm going to fantasize about guys, and maybe in 2 months I'll get bored of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, but let's try it. And 3 or 4 months down the line, you know what? This is still really fucking awesome. I think I might actually be gay.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, let's just go ahead and go with that. So I had to come out to them, but late. And literally, the kind of annoying thing is this. By the time I kind of really came to the realization, I was pretty much ready to graduate.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, there went all that prime experimental time that everybody else gets.
Yeah, exactly.
That, Alf was a little slow on the uptake, so he didn't get to play with that. So now I'm going to go back.
You're busy trying to talk while you're fixing CD players.
Yes, exactly. I have other things on my mind. But now I have to go back and live with my parents and try to deal with my sexuality and find a boyfriend. Yeah, that's not going to happen either. So I didn't come out to them actually until after I moved back to Denver after New Mexico, because it was still theoretical at that point. I wasn't dating anybody. I wasn't, and I knew it was coming. You know, it wasn't like I don't want them to know. It's just like, well, I don't. Why would you bring it up? You know, you don't.
Yeah.
I don't talk about my sex life to my parents. Most people don't. I don't think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's precisely the kind of thing of how it should be. And if you, I mean, not to get too far off track, but the thing that I remember, you know, from my experience of the world, in the 1980s, which I mean, you're a little older than me, so you'll remember that,
right?
I mean, so we're on the same page. Yeah, we remember when AIDS became a real thing,
right?
And it was this is the gay flu,
right?
You know, and the way the Reagan administration handled everything.
I mean, I first learned of AIDS as GRIDS, which was the gay related.
Yes,
you know, so it was even, you know, it was the gay disease.
It really absolutely was. And not only that, but I mean the way that gay characters were treated. There were like a handful that were coming around, like Billy Crystal on Soap,
right?
Was a positive one, but that was the first one I ever remember seeing.
Oh yeah, it was like that.
Because all the kids I knew, like it was, you know, there was Ryan White, you know, in the way he got treated and everything, and then so you fast forward through all of the bullshit that comes with that. So it's like there is more acceptance in society in the 90s.
Yeah.
It starts to become more prominent, but it is still strange. Like, it's still strange now.
Yeah.
But it is so less strange now than it was 20 years ago.
It was, well, Amendment 2 had passed here. Do you know about Amendment 2? I mean, I don't know when you moved here, so.
No, I moved here only about 5 years ago.
Okay, in the early mid-90s, I think it was 93, 94, they passed Amendment 2, which was specifically stated that there could be no quote-unquote special rights for homosexuals.
Yeah.
It could not be added into, like, anti-discriminatory laws. It could, you know, basically it's like if you wanted to discriminate against gay people, you could.
Yeah.
That was the law.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So, I mean, this was early 90s. I mean, this is when I'm living here, you know. And I can't say I gave that a lot of thought, but I can't imagine it was absent from my thoughts either.
Sure.
You know. And I think also, however, what helped me, again, was the fact that I was always kind of finding my own way.
Right.
Which was...
And your parents seemed pretty open to you. Like, just...
Yeah, I knew they would have issues with it because my father is Roman Catholic.
Yep.
My mother is Episcopalian, which is Catholic light, you know, a third less guilt.
Oh, yeah.
So it wasn't going to be just, hey, by the way.
Right.
You know.
There was going to be a conversation.
Yes. And what happened is I ended up finding a guy, and, you know, we started dating, and it ended up really quickly we were going to move in together. And I was like, well, time for a conversation.
Yeah.
And my sister was the first one I told just because I was closest to her. And she was like, oh, do you want me to tell everybody? And I was a coward, and I said, sure. Okay. You know, this is the way she went.
Let your sister do it.
Yeah. You know, she wanted to. So why not? I learned from my parents later what happened, which basically is they had a sleepless night where they talked about it. Mm-hmm. And the way my mother put it was, we finally came to the conclusion that you knew what the fuck you were doing. Mm-hmm. You know, you were not someone to just say, hey, this sounds like fun. You know, it's
right.
If you say you're gay, you probably are.
Right.
So we have no choice but to accept that. And it did take them a little time to kind of come to full grips with it.
Sure.
But they were accepting, but there was a little uncomfortableness, and I'm totally fine with that. I mean, it's hard to...
Yeah, I mean, you can't have everything. Where would you put it?
Yeah, exactly. They were very... it was like when I was growing up, my father would always say he loved us every night.
Yeah.
And I could tell how uncomfortable it was.
He was just uncomfortable with that concept of...
Well,
like
my thought is... I don't know if this is accurate or not. I've never asked him about this, but my thought was he felt his father was too distant from him. And he wanted to kind of rectify that in his relationship with his children.
Yeah.
And so he was fighting the fact that his father instilled that into him, which is that you keep your children at arm's length. He's like, no, I have to say I love him. I love you. So it wasn't that bad, but you get the idea.
Sure.
And so I never focused on the uncomfortableness. I was very appreciative of the attempt. He cared enough to want to do that. So in the same way, it's like he had there was a little uncomfortableness, and I'm totally fine with that because he pushed through that. He said, I am not going to let that be an issue. It helps that he and my father, share a passion for cooking. So they have some common ground from right off the top. They can talk about this.
Yeah.
And secondly, they get along really well. Within, a year, he was introducing, my partner to his friends as my partner because
right.
Why the fuck wouldn't you want to claim this guy?
Yeah.
So, everyone should be proud to have someone like this in their family, And so, it wasn't just as much, it wasn't extremely easy.
Right.
But it went a lot easier than I know a lot of people's do. So,
yeah.
I honestly don't think that ever played much of an issue with me as far as my mental issues went.
Well, I mean, at the same time, though, you have to. I mean, you have to admit that. A straight couple doesn't have to wonder if they're going to have to have a conversation with their parents.
That's true. I mean, it was a conversation.
You know what I mean? Like it's there are elements of it that much like everything else that you've gone through in your whole life, you seem to have taken this tack that I have an acceptance of the reality that's happening to me.
Right.
And so you seem to process those things pretty well, which is why I think you probably process this pretty well as well. But if you look at those two things side by side, and you say these are two things that I was dealing with, it's not necessarily that one might have exacerbated the other, but if you have a stress and you have mental illness of any kind, especially depression, it can just tickle it, and make it
be
wake
another
up.
thing. Yeah, it could be one of those straws.
Yeah.
That we were talking about.
Yeah,
a really heavy one, but it certainly wasn't a motivating, like a big issue.
It doesn't seem like it weighed on you hardly at all.
It was more like I knew we were going to come through it okay. I knew my parents were going to be at some level accepting and okay with it, but nobody wants that conversation. I just didn't want it to happen. I just wanted it to be over. I wanted to be on the other end of it. You know? So it was more like that. At least in my head. God, you said something that set me off. I'm thinking of something, and now I've lost it. When you're saying accepting on what's happening to you.
Yeah.
I said part of what I've done or what I've kind of dealt with is in dealing with life in general is I jokingly say is I've always twist reality slightly to fit me better.
Yeah.
And I think people do that, but I usually have fun with it in a fucked up way. Like when I'm driving and someone cuts me off, like I know your original thought is to get pissed. And what I've learned to do is like, this guy thinks I'm so awesome, he wants to be in my lane. And of course I immediately have that, you fucker. Oh well, he just loves me too much. It's like I'll do weird shit like that in my head. Or I'll play the game where it's like, who's going to make the next stupid ass move while we're driving? I bet it's him. Yes, he did. 3 points for me. Those are stresses that we all got to deal with.
Well, I mean, if you take 25 at any point in your
exactly.
day.
I did on my way here. So.
Yeah, precisely.
I got 12 points. So, yeah. And I think that's true, that I both play with reality and I have an unbelievably active fantasy life. I have at any given time anywhere from 5 to 50, movies / role-playing lives going on in my head that I pull up at any time when I'm stuck in traffic or something or I'm bored. Mm-hmm. It's like...
You a D&D guy?
No.
No,
I mean, I played. I was never really big on it.
Yeah, I was never big on it in the '80s. I'm kind of working on it a little bit now. One of my kids is
nice,
heavy.
Yeah,
he's discovered it, and it's like just blow the dust off of these books. Yeah.
Make my saving throw versus being a geek. I know what that means. Roll it -2. Okay.
Yeah.
But no, it's just and the funny thing is like I'll get to something else related in just a sec, but these things in my head, these movies, these realities, the alternate realities, whatever you want to call them, they're tailor made for me, as we all.
So
all
you
are.
mean like when you're actively participating in your life, you'll maybe invent a scenario. Or you'll play over it.
Yeah, sometimes, or I'll just escape into it. If this is like, God, this is fucking boring as shit. It's like, and
so that's what that face is right now.
Yeah, and that's no offense against you. It's just like I was helping the orcs defeat the dragons just a second ago, and you talking to me just wasn't as interesting. You just can't compete. I'm sorry. It's. And that's in effect, that was another hint that my first round of depression was really kicking in, is I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
I couldn't get into those fantasies anymore.
Because that's a thing that you've always been able to do.
Yeah, and it's just, and not necessarily constant, nowhere near that, but, but if you're having a crappy day, you'll think about, it'd be fun to be on a Hawaiian island, or whatever the hell you might think about.
Right.
And that kind of thing. And I couldn't do that anymore. It was like, or I'd think about being there, and somehow my brain would make that scenario depressing, which was weird, which was like, it's like, oh, wouldn't it be great to be a famous musician? And they say, and it's like, oh, you'd have all these people who hated you, and the label would probably drop you, and it was like that's where it's like, well, holy crap, something's really wrong.
Yeah, the darkness finds a voice.
Exactly. It's like, dude, you're fucking up my happy space, man.
Yeah,
you can't do that.
So in relation to this ability to find your way through and to navigate through, it has. I imagine that's got to be the thing that makes you a prime candidate to help people.
Kind of. I guess I'll jump into this now. For many years, I was a online advisor on a website. It was originally for gay and it was really for gay teenagers, and it's since expanded to trans and gender and young adults and even older adults. And I got the gig because I was on a previous website where it seems like every message board had some sort of advice support section, right? If it was anywhere big enough, and I was there, and I was always doling out the advice, and so I ended up on this one, and someone's like, you really need to join this site and become an advisor. And so I did. And, and I did enjoy it. And when asked about why I was, good at this.
Yeah.
And they said, you have two things going for you. He says, one is you have a very good way of cutting to the chase, cutting through some bullshit, but still presenting in a way that's palatable, And the second thing is, I like the way this one guy put it. He says, you care just enough.
Yeah.
And he says, other people care way too much, and they get really emotionally invested, and you're like, no, let me explain it.
But that's precisely it. That's the thing that people don't like to talk about very much, because there's a sensitivity to the subject matter. But the idea that you have to be a person who's able to leave it on the table and walk away,
and not just
because
that.
You got to have your own life. If something goes sideways, you can't internalize that as yours.
Right, and not only that, but it's like on that website, I was my avatar thing was a gargoyle, and so I was the gay gargoyle. It's like, I'm like, I'm the gay gargoyle giving advice online. It's like, if they're not going to take my advice, I can't really get upset about that. Fuck you, gay gargoyle. I'm not going to do it just because you said so. Well, I can't really blame you. It's so you have to remove yourself. You can't take that shit personally. It's just like, well, here's.
Wait a minute. You're telling me that you can't take the comments on the internet personally?
Well,
I've been doing it wrong for years.
That's where being the gay gargoyle helped a lot. It's like, I'm not mad at me. They mad at the fucking gay gargoyle.
That's another guy.
That's a role. But
I get that.
Well, one of the things that where they got really excited that, like, God, see, you understand, was there was this guy. He was 16 and he had a major drinking problem.
Yeah.
Already at age 16, like blackout drunk at least once a week.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of effort.
I know. And he fucking loved it. That was the problem.
How does he know?
Well, it's awesome. It's fucking awesome. And then he says, well, how do I stop drinking? And I said, well, the first step in stopping drinking is you have to not think it's really fucking awesome. And you're not at that level yet. Therefore, I can't help you. And they're like, see, that's what we should have been saying all along. And, but we've been like saying, no, you got to stop. I was like, and I'm like, look, I'm not emotionally invested in this guy. No, I don't want him to drink himself to death already.
Yeah.
But I realize immediately I can't help this guy yet.
Right.
He's not, he says, how do I stop drinking? No, he wants to know, how do I occasionally stop drinking?
Right.
Until I'm ready to really fucking
How do
party.
I go cool turkey?
Lukewarm turkey that I can put it in the microwave anytime I'm ready. It's that level.
In fact, how do I just go turkey?
Yeah, but that was the level we were at with him.
Yeah.
And they were excited that they had somebody there who was willing to just do that. If somebody was serious about their issues, I had no problem digging in. I had 3 times I had to call cops because they were threatening suicide. 3 different people. One of them in England. That was pricey.
Wow.
I was the only one awake at the time, so I had to call England, and like, we don't know these people's real names a lot of the time.
Yeah,
we're not entirely sure. We have to find their IP address and do the whole.
Sure.
So it's a process. It's really and they said they've taken the pills, and it's a race against time. But even then,
and you really can't do anything but take them at their word at that point. I mean,
right? I can tell you, all 3 of them did not die. All 3 of them were fucking pissed as hell that we did this.
Yeah.
All of them. Like, how fucking dare you? It says we dare because we care, and we don't fucking care that you're upset with us at all.
Yeah.
We would do it again in a heartbeat. And I think they all eventually came around to the idea that we did the right thing. But, at the time, you just got to deal with that. It's like we didn't do it hoping that they would give us a big round of applause afterwards. We did it because we want the goddamn person alive still,
Yeah.
And hopefully get him to a place where he doesn't need to do that kind of thing.
Right.
But it was, they said you were really good with analogies. I had a lot of analogies I pull out over and over again. Like my one about, I don't want to be gay. Mm-hmm. Why can't I be gay? And I said, well, let me give you an analogy, because I think this is what's happened. I said, imagine you live in a house built for people who are 3 feet tall. So you're constantly bent over, you're scraping your head on the ceiling, banging your head against things, scrunching up to go into a tiny bed every night. And you think, why am I so fucking tall? Your problem isn't that you're too tall. Your problem is you're in the wrong fucking house.
Yeah. Bingo.
Right. And says, you need to get out of your house. He says, you live in a place, either your home or your city, or you're in the middle of nowhereness, where being gay is, frowned upon, illegal, anything else. And so you think the problem is, if I wasn't gay, everything would be fine.
Yeah.
The problem is you are gay.
Yeah.
and we can't just, trust me, if I could fix that, we would. But that's not an option right now.
Yeah.
We need to get you out of that fucking house. Out of the 3-foot house into a house better suited for you.
Right.
And so,
and that might be a process.
Yeah, especially if you're 15.
Yeah.
And you have homophobic parents.
Right. Your parents might not want to visit your new house.
Yes, exactly. It says, eyes on the prize. We have to get you out of that house as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
Start saving your money now.
Right.
So you can move out the second that you can. So you can move somewhere if you need to. That kind of thing. So it's that kind of analogy that I would pull out, that people would go, oh, okay, now I understand. And perhaps that has part to do with, again, me looking at things differently.
Yeah.
Is coming up with these stupid analogies.
Well, and I think that people tend to develop their personalities as defense mechanisms to the things that have come at them as objections. And so you develop your personality around those things, and it's your defense against the rest of the world, so you can justify yourself. And I think that, I mean, that's certainly one way of looking at it.
Well, I wouldn't say no defense necessarily is so much as the way I think of it is like, that's my way of dealing with the world. You know, that's how I present to the world.
But the mechanism that was put in place to make you decide, I'm going to go this way or that way. I think that there is a good deal of nurture that goes along with your nature. And so you were raised in a pretty solid environment,
right,
where people didn't treat you too poorly. You said that it was fairly formal, but
slightly formal,
right? But at the same time, it's not that there was a lack of affection there.
No, not at all. I never felt that.
So. I mean, you seem like a pretty chill guy, a pretty calm guy, and you've read a lot of books. So, of course, you're going to have empathy, and you're going to be a person who's good with analogies.
Yes, one would think, yes.
And then you put all those things together in this, and then it's like, as if you weren't interesting enough, here's depression.
Yes. Let's throw that in the mix, too. What the hell?
Exactly.
So.
It's like things were going too well.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, our tragic hero needs a fault. Let's go ahead.
Let's make him not be able to get out of bed in the morning.
That'd be great. I have had, I kind of picture myself in like one of four zones.
Yeah.
Okay. Regular zone is everything's cool, and I'm like 95, 98% of the time there I am. That's, level 0, whatever you want to call it. And then there's what I consider having a bad day while in ground 0. That's like, I call level 1 or level half even. I don't feel, the pull. I don't feel cold. I don't feel, it's just like we have crappy days sometimes.
Yeah.
Everybody does. And that's where I am. And I realize, probably tomorrow I'm back in level 0 again. I'm back to fine. There is depression, which I've been in twice for extended periods. And then what you might call this weird kind of gray area, kind of on the edge, where you feel like it wouldn't take much, to nudge you that way. And I had kind of a lengthy period of that last year, where I don't think I ever quite got in, but I felt like I was close enough that I made the call and I made an appointment with the doctor so I could get the test done. And then like 3 days later, I called back. No, you know what? I don't want. This is going to sound like I'm like in denial now, but I do think I'm okay. I will call you back if I'm not. But So it was like that weird kind of gray area.
Yeah.
I will say that my absolute worst depression was still considered what you call was called mild.
Yeah.
Which means I could function.
Yeah.
It was a chore.
Yeah.
Getting out of bed and doing everything, but I could. There was the day I slammed my head repeatedly against a concrete wall.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't stop the negativity. But I did it at work because I got to work that day.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so the depression is there. It's real.
Yeah.
It's not like it's just like, oh, someone's got a sad today. It was real. But
that's the thing about depression is that it's never gone. Sometimes it's just sitting over there.
Yeah, it's in remission, or it's like it's either over there or way over there.
Yeah,
for me.
It's like,
and I realize it might come back.
It's like an ex at a party.
Yes.
You're there. You're there at the same time, and you see it across the room, and you go, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I remember you. All right, well, but we're cool. We're cool. We haven't fought in a while,
right?
I gave you back all your stuff.
I'd rather you stay over there.
Yeah, I'd rather you stay over there.
Possible.
I'm not going to let this ruin my evening."
I don't want to try it again.
Yeah.
I don't think we should give this one more shot.
All right.
No, we didn't have any good times.
Yeah, exactly. It is that kind of thing though,
yeah.
where it's like like, and I don't know if this happens to you, but I think that one of the things that I notice in my experience is that I'll have very low level pain.
Okay.
Like back pain or my hips are out of whack or something.
Dude, I'm fat and over 50, so that doesn't help me at all.
So, but
pain's my buddy now.
but that's precisely the point. I mean, I think if you're a person who's dealt with depression, it's like you can tend to look at other things. Like I look at that chronic pain as just, well, that's what life is like, and you really don't notice you're living with it until it goes away. Once it goes away, you're like, holy fuck, was I just living through that?
Well, I'll tell you this story because it I think illustrates what you're saying really well. My first round of depression back in the 90s, I dealt with basically just with a few coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
Here's how you handle this stuff mentally.
Yeah.
Second round was 2008, and I went to see the doctor, we chatted, and it helped that it happened at a time when absolutely everything was going great. Mm-hmm. Because you literally had nothing to pin it on.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is true of you, but when you're in depression or near depression, you like to pin it on things.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm depressed because...
Right. You have to know when your emotions are validated by an external stimulus.
Right.
Because if this is coming at me because I'm sad about something, then I know that I'm functioning properly.
Right.
But if I'm feeling like this and everything's going great, there's a problem.
Right. And so it was immediate that there's an issue because it's like, well, I'm obviously not upset about anything, Although my brain wanted to go, oh, you're upset about,
Right,
clearly,
of course.
Once this is fixed, you'll be fine, because the brain is stupid and likes to do shit like that. But in any case, we decided we were going to try an antidepressant.
Yeah.
Like one of the mild ones. I don't remember which one it was. And like most antidepressants, it takes forever to kick in. Mm-hmm. I think it was 2 weeks for me. And the side effects, of course, kick in right away.
Yeah.
Because how awesome is that? You only get the side effects without actually having any benefits from it for a while.
I'm still sad, but I can't get it up, and I'm losing my hair.
Yeah, exactly. This is the one I have to keep taking.
Yeah.
It helped also that my side effects here were minor. I got tinnitus in my right ear half an hour after I took it. Mildly.
Well, and that's not bad for a person working in music. Now you can relate to the bands you talk to.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, you give me a ring in my ear. That, and I occasionally would feel like I was on cold medicine. You get that slightly vague kind of feeling. I'm dealing with reality through a layer of gauze kind of feeling. Yeah. And that would go away within a half hour or two. But those were the only side effects. But I was still really fucking depressed for like two weeks. My partner and I go to Home Depot because we are remodeling our bedroom and we need to look at carpet. So we're waiting for the carpet guy, sitting on these chairs waiting for the carpet guy to show up, and suddenly it kicks in. It was like a fucking beam of light in fucking Home Depot suddenly was on my, and I
either the medicine's working or I fucking love these chairs.
Rick looked at me and he said, you had this look on your face like, holy fuck. He said you did this little dance thing on my. It's like, and it lasted like 10 seconds and it was gone. Yeah. But it was like, but once it happened, it's like, okay, no, I'm right. I'm on the right track. I remember what it's like to be normal again. I can do this. It's like suddenly you have that huge boost of confidence, and it's like you're ready. I'm ready for this now. You know? Whereas before that, it's like you're on faith, man. You're just going like, I trust that eventually life won't suck.
Right.
I trust that life, because, you start, like you said, you get used to pain. I got used to being freezing cold in the summer.
Yeah.
I got used to, that particular round of depression. I was like, I could feel it when I woke up. Like within 10 seconds, it was like putting on a huge sweater or, full body outfit that was soaked in ice water.
Yeah.
I felt cold, heavy, just miserable, and it wouldn't go away. I could distract myself from it for a while, like you could distract yourself from wearing cold clothes, I guess. But it was always there.
Yeah.
And you just, after a while, you just think, well, that's life, right? Life is like wearing one of these things because
this is my existence now.
And then suddenly it isn't. And, you know, like you said, it's like, holy shit, you know, this moment of clarity where, you know, you might say, I know life is worth living.
Yeah.
You know, but you're again, you're on faith at that time. You know, I'm sure someday I'll really, really feel that instead of just kind of half believing it, you know, kind of thing. And so, but yeah, that was such a weird, you know, Home Depot moment, you know, for me.
Fuck Lowe's.
Yes. Have you ever done this? No? Okay, I'm sticking with Home Depot.
That's a commercial.
Yes. You made me look at life in a whole new way.
Right.
Thank you, Home Depot carpet selection.
Jesus, this guy really loves the Berber. Easy sale.
Sure, we'll throw in the Stainmaster. I don't give a fuck. With that kind of testimonial.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, and so like I you know, and I'm very reluctant to tell people what to do about their own depression because, like I said, I found my own way, you know, and I don't know if my way is your way or the correct way. And I fucking hate when people say, it's like, what's the matter? Oh, I got a headache. Oh, what you need to do is drink vinegar, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because every fucking headache's exactly the same,
right?
You know, and exactly every depression isn't exactly the same. I think sometimes the antidepressant is the correct call, and I think at this time it very much was. I don't know if necessarily the first time it would have been, you know, when I didn't take it. I certainly wish it would have gone away a lot faster. but you know, but looking back, I don't regret it, you know, having it go the way it did. You know, I learned a lot about myself.
So did you wean yourself off of the medication?
Oh, yeah. Like, it didn't take long at all.
Nice.
You know, they said, well, you should take it for, you know, this much longer after you feel completely normal. Yeah. You know, which was, I don't know, like a month after that. And then it was like, okay, now I'll take half a pill.
Well, and medicine has changed so much. I mean, the half-life on that stuff is incredible now.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be in and out of your system, you know, fast.
Right.
It used to be, you know, you're going to take some pills and, you know, see how bad they fuck you up in a month.
Right.
Like, you know.
Exactly. So,
I mean, I was on a cocktail of Prozac, lithium, Depakote, and bupropion.
See, you had the white coat, basically.
Yeah.
They throw that in for free because you had a chemistry degree after a while.
They just threw everything at me and said, I don't know, one of these is bound to work, or none of them are.
We didn't, I mean, it's not that I would have objected to going that route if we had to, but it was like, well, you know, like they said, you're functional.
Yeah.
You know, we'll try something mild first. We lucked out. It was the right one the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I tried a few different things as well.
Right.
I mean, you know, that didn't work for me for a while. Prozac was a motherfucker. I don't know how anybody took that. That was insane. And lithium, you know, don't even get me started. That was crazy. But I think you're right when you say that there are no two depressions that are exactly alike. I mean,
we'll see patterns. You know, it's like, oh, you have this happen. I didn't have that happen. You know, there's there'll be overlap with other people, and there'll be places where you differ. And so what I basically have told people who are going through the same thing is like, leave everything on the table. Yeah. You know, and you know, start with the easy shit first.
Right.
The stuff you could do yourself that's cheap, that doesn't cost anything. You know, go sit under the sun lamp for a bit, or whatever the simple stuff is that you think might help. You know, if that doesn't work, you go on to the next thing. You know,
sure.
And always remember, you know, everyone's mileage may vary. You know, don't walk away, because I mean, I'll see online someone post that fucking picture of pills. So this isn't an antidepressant. A walk in the forest is an antidepressant. No, they're both fucking antidepressants.
Yeah, no, they both are. It just depends on which kind of depression you've got.
Yes, I mean, when I was at my worst, did a walk in the forest help? Yeah, it was mildly diverting.
Yeah.
It made me forget about that huge fucking heavy sweater, ice water sweater I was wearing for a little bit.
Yeah.
But once I was out of the forest, I felt it just the same as I did when I walked in. You know, so. But, and if it works for you, fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And, because that's the cheap one, and if that worked, great, But if it doesn't, try something else. You know,
the advertisement that I always liked was the one where the mom was ignoring her children.
Yeah.
When they're trying to show her artwork and stuff, and she's just in this cloud.
And I'm like, did you see the artwork? I would have ignored it too.
That's why she's sad.
Yeah, exactly. You call that a sun? Jesus Christ, that's purple.
I always thought that was so darkly funny, but it was also so accurate, because she's got this black puddle that's following her everywhere she goes, and trying to stop her from put on a bathing suit or something, and it's like it is kind of like that. This is the closest a corporate focus group commercial is ever going to get to showing people what depression looks like. But then, you see that moment where the lady's, just ignoring her children's artwork, and you cannot help but think there's something so tragically hilarious about that, because that kid is going to grow up to be a great artist because of this. Like,
that's where all the great guitarists come from. He's like,
exactly.
Mom won't listen to my scales.
Exactly. You see somebody really good at something, and you have to ask, so what was your dad like?
You fucking hated me.
A little smart, a little withholding.
Yes.
Is that what we're getting at?
She didn't like my purple sun. It's like, okay, now we know. But yeah, but you're right as far as that goes. The black cloud is kind of like,
because it'll go with you. I mean, you can take a walk in the woods, but your depression's going to come with you. It might hang back, and it might go away to a place where you can't see it for a little while. Yeah, but it is a thing that, like, because here's the awful truth about it is there's a wiring issue somewhere in you that is not going to kill you, but is going to distract you and make you maybe sometimes feel some things that are real feelings, but coming from
imaginary sources almost. Yes,
absolutely.
The brain is an unbelievably large, complex, fucked up piece of equipment that we only now, I think, barely beginning to understand.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why the whole antidepressants work like they do. Is like, you don't want to like go in there with an ice pick and try to fix it. And it's like, no, you got to really slowly nudge that thing back into shape. That's why it takes
this man needs leeches.
Yeah, exactly. We got a sledgehammer. Just gonna hit it a couple times and see if that gets back into shape. No, you got to really, really gently push around up there, and that's why it takes so long. Because we're really kind of slowly.
It's pretty dangerous. I mean, if you start just throwing medications at people willy nilly like they used to back in the 80s and the early 90s, you're gonna find really fast what does not work.
But it might fuck you up to a point where you got other issues.
Yeah, it's like these 5 medications made people suicidal. Yes, and now we've proved it. Well, okay.
He only needed the one prescription, apparently.
I guess if we were looking for an upside on that,
yes, there's
6 of 1.
Yes. Hey, we still got some left over. No, so yeah, so like I when I'm advising other people with depression, I'm like, let me quickly tell you what worked for me.
Yeah.
In the various times, I said I work on coping skills. I work on these are things that have helped me.
It's not about having all of the answers, but
nobody
it's about
does.
Telling someone
if somebody had
that there are options.
Yeah, if somebody had all the answers, nobody would have this, right? I mean, we would know it worked. It's like when they go on TV, it's like, oh, there's this new weight loss. It's like, if it worked, we'd all be fucking skinny by now.
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
we wouldn't need
They'd put it in the bread.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You could pick it up
the
next to
one
the
place
aspirin,
you want it,
right? Yeah,
right in the carbs.
Right in the carbs. You have one. No more for me, thanks. Yeah, and I was like, so this is what works for me.
Yeah.
Here are some options that have worked for me. These are ones that have worked for other people that either I haven't tried or didn't work for me, but they might work for you. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell people, like, the simple stuff to me is shake up your habits a bit.
Yeah.
Have breakfast for dinner. Take a different way home. I usually suggest people engage their creative center somehow. It's like, start drawing, sketching, writing. Well, I'm no good at that. I said, that doesn't matter. It's like what you're trying to do is engage that part.
Yeah.
I don't care if your dragon story is fucking cliched as hell. It doesn't matter. I'm not asking you to do this because I want you to write a book and make a lot of money. But this is just to get your creative center, come up with ideas, and that it's like it moves the brain around a little more. You know,
Sure.
I don't know if that necessarily will solve anything. It you know, and if it does, you know, it costs you the cost of the paper and the pencil. I mean, Jesus Christ,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
or the time on your computer. So those are the easy crap that we'll do first. You know, we'll try that shit. You know,
Yeah.
oh, that doesn't, you know, exercise some more, you know, whatever else. You know, change your
Sure.
diet a little bit. If that doesn't work, okay, we'll go on to the next step. You know, and we'll see about this. You know,
Well, for some people, medication's only going to go so far anyway.
True.
And so the idea of, you know, it certainly with some people, the idea is that medication is going to get you to a place where you can start applying your coping mechanisms and notice it.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Again, when I say I look at mental health like my physical health,
Yeah.
I said no one goes with a broken leg to a doctor, ask him to fix it, because you know that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You know, he sets the leg, he puts you in a cast so you can start, your body can actually start healing it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the medication does, at least in my way of thinking, is it gets you to the point where you can stop thinking about this negative stuff for a while, where you can actually deal with your issues or even just work on your coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
So you can get to a better place, you know. And that's why I've always used that stupid broken leg metaphor.
Yeah.
Is because I don't think anybody looks at a guy with a broken leg and says, you know, what you need, you know, you had to go to a doctor, you know, and
Yeah.
like I was telling you before we started, is that I've been always very upfront about the stuff I've gone through because,
Sure.
you know, nobody tries to hide their broken leg, you know. They're
Yeah,
like, no,
absolutely.
I'm fine, you know. Yeah, it's like, fuck that. It's so much easier to use the crutches, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And nobody looks at you like you're weak. They go, what happened? You're broken leg. Oh, okay.
Well, and if you explain it to people in the sense that, you know, I'm taking care of my own well-being because
Right.
this is what I got.
Right.
And I want it to last as long as it can, and I want it to be as good as it can. And if that's not good enough for you, you're not going to be here in 5 minutes.
Right.
Like, you know, you're going to be somewhere else.
Right.
And I'm not going to be looking at you. We're not going to be having this conversation.
Right.
And I still got to live with me.
Right.
And everything I've done, and you know, and start looking at my behavior and what my role in all of this is. Because when everything comes down to it, you're there with you.
Yeah. That's funny you say that. That's again something that was online. The you know, because a lot of the advice wasn't necessarily depression related or even
Sure.
gay related. It was like, you know, I don't like myself. A lot of self-esteem issues. And
Yeah.
I said at some point you're going to have to come to the realization that you are stuck with you for the rest of your fucking life.
Yeah.
That every time you get up, there you are. Every time you go to bed, there you are. Every time you look in the mirror, oh, look, it's you again. And I said, so what you need to do at some point is you need to befriend yourself. You need, you know, because, you know, and people are like, well, I don't like me. And I said, I understand that. And I said, but here's the thing. It says, you think about the friends you do have, they're not perfect either. You know, we like them for this stuff, and we overlook their faults, or we just deal with them. You know, they have that fucking annoying laugh, or they won't shut up about Harry Potter, or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But we deal with that because we like them.
Yeah.
They're cool folk, okay? You're going to do the same thing to yourself, you know? And here's the cool thing about befriending yourself. You have exactly the same likes and dislikes as yourself. You like exactly the same shit. You know? Right? It's like, oh, I don't care about that. Yes, you do. And I said, and so that's, to me, whenever I'm talking to them, I said, that's your first step. Is I want you to make a list of everything you like. And I said, I want that list to be at least 100 things long. You know?
Yeah.
And I said, and it could be the stupidest shit because you don't care. Nobody else is going to know it's on this list. And so if you like opening up a box of crayons and smelling the blue ones, you go on with your bad self, you know, and you start stocking up on blue crayons, you know,
Yeah.
because, you know, because you like that shit. And so you give yourself permission to like all that shit you like.
Yeah.
And suddenly I think that gets that brain going, you know, it gets them into the, okay, it's okay that I'm like this.
Yeah.
You know, it puts me in a happy place. Will I find a lot of other blue crayon smellers? Probably not. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
That's just something you do when you're home alone. You know? Wouldn't do it on the bus.
I was the kid that had the Lionel Richie album with my Black Flag record.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Precisely.
that was it. And that was one of the easier things for me to finally come to a realization that you know, especially when my friends are like, "What the fuck are you doing?" You know, like, I'm
Hello,
like,
is it me I'm looking for? No,
yeah,
it's
exactly. Like, have you heard this? This is great. I mean, Dancing on the Ceiling, it's okay,
Yeah,
it's rough, it's problematic, I get
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But
Penny Lover sucks. I will be the first to say that. But the
if
rest of
you
the
listen to
album,
the rest of the album, there's some really good stuff on there that's not super commercial. Like, he's got a great voice, he's a good songwriter. There's some really good stuff here.
well,
It's pretty punk rock.
It's right. The first artist that I liked that I came to grips with other people not liking was Gary Newman.
Yeah.
The Cars guy.
Yep.
Because, you know, it's like, you know, he sounds like a robot. Yeah, he does. But I still like him.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
You know, and, you know, at some point you kind of, it's sad that a lot of people hit this at 40 or 50. It's like, no pleasure should be guilty, right?
Precisely. There are no guilty pleasures, there are pleasures.
Right. Exactly. And there are pleasures that maybe not a lot of other people have.
Right.
You know, and that's fine. You know, just realize that other people may not want to hear about them, especially in depth.
Sure.
You know, please don't tell me about the difference between the blue crayon smells. You know,
Right.
You know, I literally just came up with that, by the way. I'm going to stick with that one because I love that one.
yeah.
The blue crayons. You know, but you know, if someone asks, yeah, I like to smell blue crayons. You know, it's fucking weird, but it makes me happy. That's so I do it, and then talk about something else. And because you know, if it brings you joy, why would you not indulge? You know, especially
Yeah.
you know, if you beat up people for fun, that's a completely different story. I'm talking again about
Right.
about you know, smelling blue crayons or Lionel Richie records.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
But you know, and I used to argue the Gary Newman thing too. He's like, no, you see, he's really. And finally, I'm like, you know what? Maybe he does completely suck. That's
Yeah.
still fine. I'll still listen to him. You know, I'll still listen to him and listen to his robot-y voice, and
Right.
all these songs sound the same, and that's fine because I listen to him and I'm happier than I was before I listened.
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't like it, it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It just means, well, that's not for you.
Yes,
This is for me.
go find your own Lionel Richie.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah, you find what makes you happy, and sometimes it's fucking weird shit, and that's fine. You know.
Well, and that's what you have to do with your own life as well. I mean,
Right.
you have to come to a place where you're willing to accept the fact that you're okay with you not being everyone else. And that can be hard. It can be hard.
It is surprising because there's you know, there are ways that we're different, and ways that are different that are sometimes really kind of off the wall. Like, I finally came to the conclusion I don't like watching movies, like at all.
Yeah.
I'll watch one at home, like all Mystery Science Theater. I mean, that's fun.
Yeah.
But if I'm gonna watch a movie at home, it'll be in like maybe half-hour chunks, you know, if that.
Yeah.
So I was down to one movie a year. Like, I was going to see the new Star Wars films, and that was it. I didn't even go to this
Sure.
last one. I was like, you know what? No, you know, and people have an issue with that, I think,
Right.
not because you know I'm demeaning something they like, but they have
Sure.
trouble wrapping their brain around the fact that. So what they'll say to me is,
Because going to the movies is cultural.
and it's a thing, right?
Yeah, it's a
we all
thing.
do it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and so they'll say, "Oh, have you seen this movie?" And I'll say, "I don't see movies. I just don't go to the movies." Oh, you should see this one. Right. And this is my favorite. And this is my favorite part. It's good. Like, I've decided that all movies suck. No, that's not it at all.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think they're inferior. It's like they're just not having the effect on me that it has on everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, it's not as an enjoyable experience as it is for me as it is for everybody else.
Yeah.
I don't think you're wrong for going to movies. I don't think
Yeah.
you're wrong for liking this particular one. It just does not do anything for me. You know, to me,
Right.
at best, I'm like, oh, okay, that was, yeah.
They
you
might
know.
as well be saying, you know, you should go mud wrestling. You know?
Or, you know, or it's like, oh, I know you've disliked the other, 8th grade essays that I've made you read, but this one,
Right.
It's like, no, I've just decided I'm not reading any more 8th grade essays.
This one's
you know.
about aglets.
Yeah. And I know you like shoelaces, so you're going to read this. No, it's just like, no. And you have to do that. So I've just learned to just go, oh, okay. And then, of course, never think about it again, you know, because it's hard to argue with.
Yeah.
No, you really, you know, because it's about things I don't care that it's and finally I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll take that on board and then never deal with it again. But thank you. It's so it's I'm like I said, I'm a music guy. And so I have favorite albums, but I don't suggest them to people unless they hit me up. Hey, I like this type of music. What would you recommend?
Right.
Otherwise, it's just like, I this record changed my life, and I can guarantee you probably won't like it very much.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Have you heard it? It's good. No, I know it's good. I just, it's.
And there are a lot of things that I can point at and say, this record changed my life, or this came to me at a time when I really needed it,
right.
Or something like that, or even like a trash book
right.
that I bought at an airport that was a paperback that had an interesting cover, and
right.
then it just blew me away, and I wasn't expecting it, or because it just hit me in the heart at a time when I needed to hear something that was in it. And then you can look at it objectively and say it's not good.
Right.
But
it was awesome.
The part where it fixed my heart is
fantastic.
The part I love. And I don't think you're going to get that out of, Dan Brown's Angels and Demons or whatever.
Right.
And I don't know who is going to get that out of it, but I got that out of it.
And,
you know
and that's
what I mean?
awesome. And I would, I would always encourage people. It's like, well, I kind of like read. Good, awesome, keep reading.
Yeah.
If you love
read
that
anything,
if you love that movie, go see it again.
Right.
One of my things was I had bought this used CD, and when I was depressed the first time and I couldn't sleep, it was 2:30 in the morning, and I put it on, and it was the right CD.
Yeah.
For the right time. It was a solo guitar jazz CD by Earl Klugh, and to this day, I don't own anything else by Earl Klugh.
Right.
And 2, won't even listen to it again because it reminds me of being depressed.
Yeah.
But it was the right CD
right.
at the right time. I would not recommend people who are depressed, oh, you have to listen to this CD.
Right. But it still kind of exists as a totem.
Right. Whenever I think of that CD, I think of that, remember that time that got me through that really low night that I couldn't sleep and I was feeling terrible. It was like the right disc at the right time, And, I think we especially anyone who deals with depression will run into those.
Yeah.
And the thing about me, again, I won't say this about anybody else, maybe it's true of you, is my brain will latch onto something like that and then try to make that the cure,
Yeah.
So anytime I'm sad,
well,
I just need to pull out this CD and everything will be just great.
Right.
You try, it didn't work again.
Well, I've got just enough obsessive and superstitious in me to do things like that.
Right, exactly. Got my lucky socks on, so today's going to be okay. I think we all are, to a degree, will think that.
Yeah, I for a while I carried sand from my boss's trip to Mexico in my wallet. Right. And I didn't have any aspirations to go to Mexico. I just liked the idea that it was from somewhere else, and I wanted the reminder that there were different places than where I was at in life.
See?
And it was in my back pocket, and it was uncomfortable. And
I was going to say if it worked, but I'm like, if it was uncomfortable, you had to not want to rethink it.
But it brought new problems, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't as bad as, I really ought to pick up drinking. Those people look happy. It wasn't as bad as anything like that.
Right.
But, it is definitely one of those things. I got a horrible Stephen King novel when I was going through my divorce. It was called Duma Key, and it was this story about a guy who is a 50-year-old construction worker, and he gets in a really bad accident, and he loses his arm, and he goes into physical therapy, and his life sucks. He has a bad attitude. His wife leaves him.
Okay.
And then he has to heal himself.
Right.
And then there's a bunch of supernatural shit, and there's like Scooby-Doo pirates at the end that come in out of nowhere.
Hey, it's the Goonies.
Right. So the book is terrible, legitimately. But, it was Stephen King, going, I got to pay for something, so I'm like, here you go.
Let's ride me a swimming pool.
Yeah, exactly. That's what he was doing. But at the same time, there was one sentiment in it that I latched onto that just, it saved my life at that moment. And he started talking about everything that happened before he lost his arm. His dominant arm.
Right.
And he started talking
Fuck,
about
it's my
that
wiping arm. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus. Okay.
Jerking off is strange. Like,
I'm cheating on myself.
but he referred to all of that as his old life.
Right.
And now this is my new life.
Right.
And this is who I was, and now this is who I have to be.
Right.
And you've got that choice. And I always had this idea in my head, hence the title of this podcast.
Uh-huh.
I had this idea that you wake up in the morning and you have two choices. You can kill yourself, or you can have a cup of coffee.
Right.
And so that's how I got through my depression. Was I
Right.
just I actively every morning when those obsessive thoughts had come in or whatever, I would just go, yeah, all right, well, here's my options. I can brush my teeth, or I can just, jam the toothbrush in my eye and see if it hits my brain. I'll probably just brush my teeth.
Right.
And then it was just every day it became more and more of that. Moved to Denver, and everything was amazing for a little while. And then, life sets in and things get hard and the depression knocks on the door. And it's like, you could just jump in front of the train. And I go, yeah, I could, except, I could also... I could also learn to tame unicorns in the outback. Those are both options right now that are just as realistic to me.
Right.
But my brain decides it's going to give it to me anyway.
Right.
And so I just learned how to deal with that.
Yeah.
And sometimes a piece of garbage art can be the thing that gets you through those moments.
You need the cope. That's your coping mechanism for that right moment. I have one that's more ridiculous than your Stephen King film.
Yeah?
Which was, I was watching Disney Afternoon. So that might be about your age. I don't know. So
Yeah, maybe.
okay, I was watching Tailspin, actually.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
That's my wheelhouse, man.
all right, cool. Big Don Carnage fan.
Yeah.
So we're about to go into the ad break, and they had a little bumper thing.
Sure.
With Blue, and Blue says, "Hey, stick around, see what happens." And that was it.
Yeah.
That was what I needed right then. Was
Stick around, see what happens.
I said, oh, I could kill myself, or I could stick around and see what happens. And again, it just the stupidest fucking thing can get you through that day or through that week, and that's what did it that week. Was like, holy crap,
Yeah.
And I don't want to make it to the point. I do believe that had he said something else, like, we'll be back after these commercials,
Right.
there probably would have been something else.
Yeah.
It's not like Baloo literally saved my life, or the whoever was in charge of Disney
Right.
Afternoon Animation in early 90s. It was just like that was what did it.
Yeah.
Right then. Awesome. And so you grabbed onto that, and like Tarzan, he's like, okay, now looking for the next vine. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's what did it that day was fucking Baloo.
Yeah.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. You take those moments where you can get them.
Exactly.
Because sometimes those vines are really far apart.
Come on.
Oh, it's coming. It's coming. And sometimes you do hit a tree like George of the Jungle and you find out, oh, that wasn't Tarzan at all.
Yes. Yeah,
Well, it was good talking to you, Alf.
Oh, it was a lot of fun. Cool,
Yeah,
man.
I had a good time.
Yeah. I think I got to everything I was going to say. I got a lot more to do. Actually, I will say this. I just, me and a friend have put together a group of local musicians who have mental problems one way or the other.
Yeah.
We're going to start doing a regular meeting, just kind of a mutual support group. And we meet our first time in about a week and a half. And so I've been kind of, between this podcast and that, been flipping through, what do I think? What do I know? What do I want to say? What do I, so.
Sure.
So it's been interesting, like revisiting this, especially in such a way, because it's always been internal, for me. It just, like I said, I've dealt with it in here.
Well,
in
and
my
that's
brain,
the thing. Sometimes you don't know what you've been through until you say it out loud and you see someone react.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Yes. Baloo? Really? Okay. But yeah. So it's been interesting, kind of getting all my thoughts together. They're still really cloudy and as scattershot as a typical podcast.
Sure.
But it was interesting, like, getting them out in words. So it's been cool. So
Excellent.
awesome.
Well, thanks for talking to me.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.
Well, how about that? Wasn't that amazing? He's awesome. I just love that guy to death. Make sure to check out his radio show, the Locals Only, and the All Request Retro radio show, Sundays, 8 to midnight on 93.3 KTCL Denver. You can go to area93.com to find out more about that. The iHeartRadio app is available, and you can listen to it from other places. That's right. Get a little Denver in your ears from somewhere else. Until next week, I'm Chris Parker Howard. Thank you so much for joining me every week on this journey. We got some great stuff coming up. We got some comedians. We got some musicians. Everything's getting better as it goes. Don't kill yourself out there. Stick around. See what happens next.